Red Onion State Prison, home to roughly 830 of Virginia's 30,000 state responsible offenders. The facility opened in 1998, providing job opportunities for people in southwestern Virginia. Assistant Warden Jeffrey Artrip was one of them.
Back in '98, I was here when we got the first offenders off the bus. It was different then. We had a population similar to what we had now.
Today, the offender population at Red Onion consists of men in security levels ranging from level 5 to the highest security level, level S. Lower level offenders are housed in buildings A and B. They're granted many of the privileges associated with lower level prisons in Virginia: outside recreation, pad recreation, unrestrained movement to chow halls and to the on-site school for educational opportunities. However, this wasn't always the case for offenders at Red Onion.
Somewhere around 2001, we went to all segregation.
And at that time, Red Onion was a lockdown facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the exception of recreation, 1 hour a day, and showers. There was about 2 pods of the total prison that were cadre that did most of the work internal to the prison, but by far the largest majority of that prison was a segregation unit.
Those are the bad years, I guess, as I'll say. Staff was overworked. Offenders didn't have no hope.
Inmates here, when they came here, they know they was going to be locked down most of the time due to the serious nature of that crime, the time, and their behavior.
The all-segregation setup proved to be a highly stressful environment for offenders, as their abilities to interact with other offenders and staff deteriorated. The move also affected staff, reducing morale and increasing the use of sick leave to get away.
When we were all locked down, you had that perfect storm. Nobody had no release. There was no light. Staff dealt with the same problems every day.
Programming for offenders was limited.
Basically, we had 2 programs. You had an anger management program, and we done a breaking barriers program, and really not much reentry at all.
And many offenders were being released from Red Onion after years of segregation, returning straight to their communities.
We gave them a bus ticket and said good luck.
Change was needed, and it came not long after the 2010 arrival of Virginia Department of Corrections Director Harold Clark.
I recall my first trip to Red Onion, which was the second facility that I stopped by after arriving in Virginia. I saw a very secure facility, an institution that was focused on command and control. It was very clean, it was very orderly. I saw people who knew security very well that were intent on making sure that they had a safe operation in terms of preventing escapes and so forth, and protecting staff and offenders.
After that first visit, Director Clark began to analyze past data on Red Onion. One number concerned him greatly. In the course of 1 year, around 60 offenders had been released from segregation at Red Onion directly to the community.
I thought that there was something wrong with that picture. That had to change, because while Red Onion is a very close facility, focused, as I said, on security, command and control, and those offenders are deemed to be very dangerous. And so therefore, every place they went in the facility, they were either escorted by 1 or 2 individuals in restraints. But then to release them into the community with no restraints whatsoever and no process of moving from a higher security to a lower, I found that to be troubling and decided that something had to be done.
When Director Clark, Harold Clark, arrived as our director back in 2010, he introduced a whole new initiative to us to really refocus from short-term public safety, which is incarcerating people and having them on probation supervision, to really focusing our efforts on creating long-term public safety.
I decided that if we're going to take a risk with these individuals, the risk ought to take place while they're still in custody and not once they're released on an unsuspecting public.
In 2011, the department launched an effort to reform Red Onion State Prison and change the culture for offenders and staff.
We realized that We had a situation where a lot of people had gone into segregation, but they really didn't have a pathway to get out. We had a think tank of folks that came up with some ideas that decided to apply the science of evidence-based practices to a high security environment and create a step-down path for people to get out. It required a whole culture change, and staff are the people that hold the culture, if you will, of a prison. So it required extensive training of everyone up there. We put everyone through extensive communication training so they could learn, correctional officers could learn techniques to motivate change. And a lot of them came out of the training really energized and feeling like that they now were doing more of what they wanted to do. They felt more rewarded in their jobs. They actually began to see people change, and I think they didn't realize people could change. And when they started to see people change, it really increased their desire to help people change even more.
Staff and offenders both started seeing a little light. We needed that change. We couldn't keep going the way we were going. Staff was stressed at that point too. So when the change came, it was truly a healing environment for us.
The healing environment, described as an environment purposefully created by the way we work together and treat each other, encouraging all to use their initiative to make positive, progressive changes to improve lives. It is safe, respectful, and ethical, where people are both supported and challenged to be accountable for their actions. It's the motivation behind the Virginia Department of Corrections Administrative Segregation Step-Down Program. This award-winning initiative that is providing a method for offenders in restrictive housing or segregation to work their way into a general population. But first, Red Onion had to create a general population inside what was a total segregation facility. To accomplish this, some Security Level S offenders were moved from Red Onion to nearby Wallens Ridge State Prison. Those Level S offenders who remained at Red Onion were housed in C Building.
We felt like in the past we had made assignment there a little too easy, or easier than we wanted if our goal was really to reduce recidivism. So we added extra levels of review. So rather than a warden being able to assign someone to that prison, it actually had to go through our classification department, as well as through the warden of Red Onion Prison, as well as be approved by the regional director up there, the regional operations chief. So it added a level of review that we did not have before. So it made it harder to get in. Then once, if an offender was accepted into the program, they went through an orientation process that included review by an interdisciplinary team. And that was a team of staff, mental health, counselors, security, people from different disciplines who looked at that person with various lenses on regarding their needs. We also would give them an assessment that would tell us what are their risks and what are their needs. And the purpose in doing a risk and needs assessment is really to see if there are needs that we can address that mitigate those risks. So all that would have to occur before someone actually gets assigned to Level S.
Level S offenders are confined to their individual cells, only exiting when escorted securely to things like rec, showers, and visitation. Security Level 6 was introduced and placed in D Building.
6 is really, we call it a proving ground, but it's where the person really has full restraints off for the first time. So they do have more liberties, but it is more restricted in terms of privileges. They may work, they may be in one of the special pods, but they're going to be working on the housing unit. But that becomes a proving ground for someone before they are able to go to a general population setting.
Security Level 5 offenders were moved from Wallens Ridge to Red Onion State Prison and placed in general population settings in buildings A and B.
That is a GP unit that we have at other prisons as well. So that's full privileges that they would have at other Level 5s in the state. So they would have free movement around the prison. It's controlled movement, but they are not restrained. And they could go to school, go to the classroom, they could go to work, they can go to the recreation yard, totally unrestrained.
Programming is available at all levels. The Challenge Series, Thinking for a Change, Cognitive Self-Change, PREPs, Anger Management, Ready to Work, Resources for Successful Living. These are some of the programs in place to help offenders move through the step-down process and prepare for reentry. For Level S offenders, programming begins in the cell.
They are totally in the cell. The activity occurs in the cell with the counselor working with them on that book, and he'll turn in the journal and then he'll work on it more. In step down phase 1, he begins the journals in his cell, and then he can progress to using a therapeutic module. So these are modules that are secure, and each offender has their own module, but they're in a circle so they can interact with each other and interact with the facilitator. So that's really been a wonderful security tool that has enhanced our ability to get people out of their cell and interacting with others. If the person is successful in the therapeutic module and with their programming and attitude, then they can step down to the next phase, step down 2. There, they start out in the therapeutic modules, and if their programming goes well and their attitude and behavior, then their next step would be to do programming in the therapeutic chairs. And the therapeutic chairs are desks that where they do have some restraints on, but their one arm is free so they can take notes and they can interact with others. Then the next step would be that the offenders can get in small groups with others, and that would be in security level 6, which is the next step down.
Today was just an overview.
To facilitate these programs, the department created new positions called treatment
Do y'all have any
officers.
questions for me? A treatment officer is a position that is a bridge between security and treatment. We escort offenders to class, and then we actually facilitate the class also.
We communicate a whole lot more with treatment because we are really trying to prepare them to go back, like I said. So that, I mean, we have the same contacts as a regular CO does. It's just we have a little bit more verbal and communication with them.
Well, we have to talk to them. We have to get on another level with them to help see how they think and try to help them change the way they think.
Treatment officers, they are unique individuals. They are very essential to the operation of changing the mindsets of the offenders. They used to look at an officer as just being an officer in blue, the pig, 5-0. But now they're looking at an officer who come to them and talk to them in a manner of dialogue and in a working dialogue session, to where the inmate can feel comfortable telling the officer something and the officer can tell him about his process of thinking.
But if you say to the offender, why are you really doing that? You need to think about that. What are the causes and effects of what you're getting ready to do? If you do X, Y is going to occur. You know, have you thought about that? So we really changed the way staff communicated with offenders.
You have to have the utmost level of professionalism, and I like knowing that I can help them. Because if I can help them be a better person, maybe they can be a better dad to their kids or husband or spouse, be better to one of my floor officers or coworkers, to my unit manager. You know, if I can make them just to be a little bit better, then I've done something in the world.
I've seen great progress out of it, not only from segregation back into a general population setting, but also from prison back into the community. I've seen a lot of success stories.
And that is the nature of the beast. That's the way of life sometimes.
One of those success stories is Malcolm Springs. He's serving 104 years in prison after being convicted of several violent crimes. He first arrived at Red Onion 9 years ago.
Well, when I first came here at Red Onion, I was young, and I was acting out a lot. I ain't care about nothing. When I first got here, they really ain't have no set program or no type step-down program, but once they got the step-down program, it helped me process through and learn a lot of things on how to act different and think different. I know how to control my anger better. Instead of just snapping out, I think about the situation, and I can control it better by doing that. I was in C building, that's a level S. Then I did the program, the challenge series. Then I went to D building, that's level 6. I took thinking for a change. Now I'm in population. Basically, if you come here and do what you got to do, it'll be a smooth process. You can make it hard or you can make it easy. They're going to give you everything you need for you to do what you got to do, to go through the programs and succeed. But if you don't want that, then you won't succeed.
Once someone is assigned to the program, they are identified as to whether they would go into an intensive management track or a special management track. The tracks are based on really the person's behavior as well as their risk and needs and the assessments that we did, but their pattern of behavior. And it has more to do with their internal in-prison behavior than it does crimes on the street, although not necessarily. So if someone is placed in the special management track, that is someone who typically has had disruptive behavior in prison, was a behavior management problem, getting a lot of internal infractions, things like that. The other track, the intensive management track, are people who have really created more heinous crimes while they're in prison. So it is really three main groupings of people in IM. It is people who have really showed the capability and really intent to commit extreme and deadly violence in prison.
I'm at Red Onion because in 2012 of August, I stabbed another inmate over a gang fight.
Vito Hain is on the intensive management track.
I was at Walden's Ridge originally when I first came into the system, and then on good behavior and I stayed out of trouble, I got transferred to King Mountain State Prison. And while I was at King Mountain, I got into a big fight and I went inside somebody's cell and I beat him up real bad. Got sent to Sussex 1 because of my bad behavior from King Mountain. And then while I was at Sussex, I did the stabbing. That's one thing I've learned about being in IM is that when you get in trouble, you have to face your responsibilities. You have to be accountable for your actions. And I was actually on my way next door. I was offered the opportunity to go next door. And at the time that I was offered that opportunity, I had some things I was taking care of. I didn't want any distractions, trying to reach a goal, personal goals of mine. And so I declined to go next door. But with that being said, like 2 weeks after that, I got in a little bit of trouble. I do want to go now. I'm not going to decline anymore to go back to population. I definitely want to go out there. I'm motivated now. I think I'm ready. So that's my main motivation, just to prove to myself that I'm able to go out there, use this program and what I learned in here to go out there and behave like I'm supposed to be. Temperament is everything. So that's the type of skills that they're teaching us. Just stop and think what's proper to say, what's improper to say, and pay attention to what the other person is saying, because I think a lot of things that we get in trouble in prison over is that we don't stop and listen to each other. This is my third time in prison, so I get that a lot. I get people asking me, "Dang, you didn't learn the first time? You didn't learn the second time? Are you learning now the third time?" And to be honest with you, yeah, even though it's my third time in prison, I actually didn't learn anything my first 4 years in prison. I was still doing the same thing I was doing on the street. When I came to prison, I was still selling drugs. I was still gangbanging. I was still committing active violence. I was still running people's cell, robbing them like I was still on the street. Nothing changed because I was in prison. The only thing that changed was I didn't have the ability to leave when I wanted to. That's the only thing that was different for me. So it took this incident that I'm up at Red Onion for to really open my eyes and say, hey, I need to change. This is not for me anymore. I think I've matured enough where I'm ready to go to population, where I believe I can handle myself without getting in trouble. I mean, obviously this is a prison and we can't control what another man does. So I'm gonna defend myself because, like I said, I can't control what another man does. But as far as me doing anything or initiating anything, I'm confident that I won't do that because A, that's not my belief system in my religion, and two, as far as the skills I've learned here is to kind of just take a step back and evaluate the situation. If it's possible for me to walk away, I will. And that's one of the skills I'm learning here, to be patient. You know, don't be so quick to anger. Relax a little bit.
Whether you're an SM or an IM, I think of them as parallel tracks. You do have the same pathway to a point. So there's 3 levels in each level S category. So there's a 0, there's an IM 0 and an SM 0, an IM 1 and an SM 1, and an IM 2 and an SM 2. Those are step-down tracks. So we do have evidence-based manuals that they are given certain manuals at different points in the program. So if you're an SM 0 or IM 0 to advance to the next level, to the IM 1, you would need to complete certain manuals. And you also have to have certain behaviors as well as certain attitudes. And those are evaluated weekly by the unit staff, and then there are more formal reviews that go on. Once you're in level 6, intensive management has a closed pod that they may go to where they have extra privileges, and then they have step downs in there, step down 1, and then we are just creating a second step down in intensive management where they get even more and more privileges.
In each step, offenders are challenged to think differently, talk about their behaviors, and set goals. The process takes time. Often the biggest hurdle for offenders is accepting the terms of the program and staying the course, something Lars Hansen understands. Serving a life sentence for murder, Hansen arrived at Red Onion in 2012 at Security Level S.
When I first came up here, they have a system or you're either going to be underneath a special management or intensive management. Intensive management is for guys more serious. And I was classified for intensive management. At the time, I was kind of at my, I guess you could say, I hit a point in my life where everyone in prison kind of hits rock bottom sometimes, and at the time, that's what happened. And
Hansen was encouraged to begin the step-down program.
I basically went through the Challenge Series programs and progressed from level S to, progressed through the level S, which IM, which allows me to go to a IM closed pod, which is level 6, but it's still really close management. You know, it's supposed to be general population, but it's really ran like segregation because of how serious the guys' charges are.
And after that?
And I was over there and I progressed through that and went through the programs, Thinking for a Change, anger management. So I did anger management. I was given a job. They monitored me, see how I was doing. And then I was actually reviewed by the DOC, and then they felt comfortable to let me out. And I went to, from the IM to the SM step down. And I went through the Thinking for a Change there and progressed out. And now I'm back in general population, security level 5. So, you know, it's really up to the person if they want to take from it. I took from it, and I basically tried to gear all that to really how I think, and instead of just acting or reacting or, you know, just, it can always be worse. And so, yeah, so, and that's why I'm kind of mellow now. I basically appreciated what I do have, and I'm so thankful I'm not still in level S, especially. And, that really broke me down, you know.
Also, tell me more about level S.
It's bad. If you know, a person has to be in that situation really to. It's easy for someone to look from the outside looking in and say, oh well, you know, whatever. But when you have to be put in that and have to live through it, you know, years on end, that's where the challenge comes in. That's where you have to have a strong mind, and some people do, some people don't. Hopefully I can progress down to a lower security level where I have actually more privileges, and whether, you know, basically the system can basically trust me to, you know, not screw up, and, you know, it's basically I earn, you know, by my actions I can basically earn certain privileges and stuff like that. I'm a lot happier, I tell you that. I'm thankful and I'm grateful. I appreciate it. You know, I don't take it for granted.
Another category of folks who would be in intensive management are folks that have had really significant escapes. Not someone who was on a road camp and walked away from their assignment impulsively, but someone who really was in a higher security prison and had a significant escape. So they might be in intensive management, and even more so if they had a pattern of escapes. And then the third category in intensive management are very few, but it's folks that have a really high-profile, notorious crime. And we have them in that track because often other offenders will have them at risk and will try to make a name for themselves by harming that high-profile offender because their crimes were so serious. So that's what gets you in the intensive management track. In addition to regular status reviews at the prison, there is a DOC executive level team that travels to the prison twice per year to provide an outside review of each offender's case. And the team also confirms his appropriate step-down path assignment. This team may make changes to the offender's path if they feel it is warranted. The external review team is comprised of high-level DOC headquarters and regional staff, including the mental health director, the offender classification chief, the Reentry Programs director, the chief nurse, and the operational chiefs from other regions who don't house level S offenders.
For the step-down program to be successful, participating offenders must value the incentives that come with the lower levels of security. There are those who have successfully moved down in security level only to be moved back up as a result of infractions or charges. A harsh reality when it comes to the step-down program is that prison culture can sometimes block progress, if offenders allow it. As explained by offender Michael Kelly, he has served 12 years of a 38-year sentence for 2 armed robberies. He's been at Red Onion for the last 5 years.
It's super worth it. Yeah, I mean, if you wanna be out more and have recreation and stuff like that, right? Yeah, it's super worth it. But that doesn't matter if somebody disrespects you. It don't matter. You know, the program don't matter. Like if somebody disrespects me today, I'll have to throw away the last 18 months of my life of doing the program and trying to make it out of here. If somebody disrespects me today, I gotta throw all that shit out the window. You know?
Why? Why is it worth it to throw out all the work that you've done for 18 months?
Because if I don't do something today, tomorrow, whatever individual seen it or whoever gets word that I let somebody disrespect me and then let them get away with it, tomorrow I'll have a bigger problem with more individuals and more inmates will feel like they can disrespect me and do whatever to me, treat me like I'm some type of bitch, you know what I mean? And that I can't live like that, you know? In order to maintain my respect, sometimes I have to act out in violence to other inmates or whatever the case may be, so that I can maintain my respect in this environment. I'd rather live with my respect and have all these different consequences and these harsh consequences than to not have my respect and be living through prison like a bitch, you know what I mean?
So the respect trumps
Everything.
general population.
Everything. It trumps everything. It has to. That's the only way I can survive.
If you're in the SM track, you can advance down through the step downs in restrictive housing to several specialized pods. The pods are, we call it a SIP pod, a SAM pod, and then there's a general step down pod, we call it. So the SIP pod stands for Secure Integrated Pod. And those are for folks that have had problems getting along, socializing with others. And it's not as much that they are violent, but that they don't want to, and they're scared. And they might create disruptive behavior to avoid getting put in general population. So one of our thoughts with this program is if we could group those folks who are scared together, they're more likely to get along and to adjust better in this pod. The second step down pod, SAM, is called Secure Allied Management. And that's for folks who are easily led, easily bullied. They might be folks that have some mental health needs. They might be folks with limited mental capabilities. And so they go there for the same thinking. If we can put them together, we have more attention and mental health staff there, special programming for them, they're more likely to have a successful adjustment.
Those guys are the ones that kind of got lost in the shuffle due to their low functioning when we were long-term stay before. Those are guys that, as an officer, you like them being in your pod because they never went anywhere. They never asked for nothing. They never caught no charges.
Managing mental health offenders is a critical element in corrections. Qualified mental health professionals, or QMHPs, work with offenders who have been diagnosed with mental health conditions. For some, mental health issues can delay or prevent successful completion of the step-down program. Mental health issues can also make advancing to general population a safety and security concern.
But we do have several. Yeah, this is exciting.
The development of special pod communities for mental health offenders offers them a chance to step out of segregation and toward the general population through more secured environments that come with privileges, like the new Symptoms Management Horticulture class developed by QMHP Stephanie Fletcher.
It's part of our effort to try to help the offenders understand and recognize what healthy relationships look like in connection with their mental illness, and helping them to understand what it looks like so that they can develop healthier relationships in their life while they're here, and in hopes when they get back out on the street that they will know how to nurture those relationships and be more successful.
We tried to use groups that do have a research basis, in other words, that have demonstrated effectiveness in outcomes. And where we're getting a lot of bang for our buck is we're focusing on self-management. So we're focusing on emotional regulation. We're focusing on coping skills, teaching people adaptive skills. And also, what do I do with these emotions? Once I've realized I have them, I've labeled them, I don't need them to spill out all over the people, you know, in the chow hall or in the program I'm sitting in. So we are trying to teach people to more effectively handle their emotions and to make more effective behavioral choices.
It's about growing, right? You know what I'm saying? And life is a continual growing process, you know what I'm saying? Through the decisions that we make. It's like change is constant, and that's what happens in the horticulture class. You know, you see a constant change, you know, in the way things come up and the way things grow, you know, and then you have to improvise as you go along with the change, you know what I'm saying?
It's healing to have your hands in the soil and to be able to just nurture something, which is not something that we really get to see the offenders do here. Because it is such a high level of security. So it gives them the opportunity to invest in something and reap a little bit of the reward and interact with each other in an environment that isn't about keeping security. They may have never seen a healthy relationship, even in terms of interacting with parents or siblings or people in the community. So if you've never seen it, how do you know how to replicate it? How do you know how to have healthy relationships? So it's our hope that we can show them what a healthy relationship looks like and help them develop those relationships, even if they spend the rest of their life or they have to spend the rest of their life at Red Onion or another institution. They can still have healthy relationships with their family at home through writing and communicating, or they can develop friendships here that will make their time a little bit easier.
Quincy Jones has been at Red Onion for 5 years. A self-described introvert, Jones says the step-down program and the new treatment officers have given him a social outlet he didn't have before.
Well, work for me gives me more room to do different things with myself, coming out the cell more, being able to socialize better. It's just a better environment where I can spend more time actually mentioning what's actually going on within myself, things I do in the cell, outside the cell, going for rec, just get to move around also, other than staying stuck inside the cell. Well, you go to class, they have like this little class that you come out with other guys in the cell. We just come out and you go over stuff like different skills, communication skills, things how you can cope with other peers and other inmates. So it helps you to balance out, you know, your duration while you're incarcerated. We did a lot of role play, you know, so we can act, okay, what would you do in this situation right here? So they'd go around, and a lot of times doing the role play, a lot of people would learn from each other. Because some of the stuff that you see somebody else doing, you'd be like, I don't think I would have took that avenue, but then you say, nah, maybe it would work. So them little classes like that, little sessions like that, we basically did a lot of role playing, and that seemed to help a lot. It takes a lot for me to get comfortable with a person, so you have to really, and doing a step down, it gives me a chance to open up. Whereas though if I'm in that cell, I don't have that opportunity to open up to a staff, so it makes me even more antisocial. But now that I'm out here on the step down, then I'm able to open up more because I'm able to spend time on the floor with other staffs and stuff like that. Outside of that, we would be unable to build anything. I used to be very impatient, which sometimes I still am, but I'm working up. But like this, when we get to come out like this and socialize at that group that they allow us to sit at, it gives me a chance to open up. And the more I open up and the more comfortable I get, the more you hear me talk, then the more I'm able to realize, man, I can be patient with this person. You know, but if you don't give me that opportunity, I'm gonna stay impatient. So now that I have the opportunity, it helps me with my patience with others as well as myself. You know, I done got my GED, I get certificates, I've been charge free, I ain't been doing anything crazy. So spend time with God, so I have a lot to look forward to. And I don't have a life sentence. I am going home one day soon, so there's no sense of throwing my life away like that when I still have the doors open for me.
One of the doors open to offenders at Red Onion State Prison is the one that leads to an education. In the center of the compound sits a new school where classes are offered to offenders. Brad Jett teaches at Red Onion, a position he's held for 18 years. For most of his career, teaching was done using a long-distance method of recording videos and sending lesson packets to students in their cells. That changed 3 years ago when classrooms were constructed at Red Onion.
We were long distance for 15 years. Then we went over to the classroom here the last 3, and it's transitioned exceptional. We have 6 different levels of adult basic education, which is our program. We have students who are at level 1, non-readers, and we have students who are level 6, ready to get their GED. The biggest portion we have are levels 3 and 4. That's going to be about a 6th to 8th grade level that we see. That's the biggest, that's what we focus on the most. We focus with them on the subjects to get them ready to go back and re-enter society. We focus on the literacy subjects, math, reading, and language.
Red Onion has the largest compliance of offenders going to school than any other school in our system. There's more people goes to school and attend school there than any of our other prisons.
You know, I get the question asked a lot, you know, why do they even have school there? And if you don't work here and you're not in corrections, you may not understand, but correction is a very broad term. You know, we're doing all this for reentry. Probably half of my class is going to be going home within the next 10 to 15 years. So, you know, we work on getting them ready, giving them a tool for their tool belt. That way when they get out, you know, they're going to have a chance to be successful.
This one little thing here is just regular fiction. But then we have our urban books here, and then we have our classics down here, and they're then alphabetized by, you know, the author.
In addition to the school, a central library provides offenders with a variety of reading materials. Pam Ashbrook is the librarian at Red Onion. She returned to Southwestern Virginia after years of working in public libraries, school libraries, the Department of Defense, and the Department of the Navy.
That I have a lot of people that will ask me when they say that I work at a Supermax. They say, "Aren't you afraid? Aren't you?" And I said, "I'm very aware of where I am. I'm very aware of the offenders that are here. But I said, I've never been afraid a day since I've been here because we have wonderful officers and things that work here. We have people who can barely read. We have some people, you know, that aren't able to read, some of those because they have mental deficiencies and things like that, you know, that they simply are unable to read, you know, they're mentally challenged. We have people that are incredibly intelligent.
Running a prison library is not a one-person job, so Ashbrook has the benefit of hiring offenders to help prepare books for delivery and reshelve books as they are returned.
I really enjoy my workers, and they are very hardworking. This is a huge library. We have over 8,000 books in here. We have about 1,300 books a month that we circulate out. So one person could not do this. And I depend heavily on them to take care of those things because I have other things that I have to do too. So they're good.
And working in the library is a privilege not lost on offenders Benjamin Carey and Roy Fincher, an honor they're both very proud to have earned.
So it's all about the individual, the inmate, or how he conduct himself. You know what I mean? Like this, like the inmate can make his stay here harder than what it could be. You know what I mean? But if you mind your business, keep your head down, and just, you know what I mean, if your mission and your goal is to get from off this facility and get closer to your home, then you can make it. You know what I mean? You can make it. But like in our situation, like when you stay charge free for a long amount of time, you get in better positions. Like for me and him, we in the best position because we in the honor part and we got this job where we come out. You know what I mean? So our stay here is more easy than a lot of other inmates though.
Start with yourself. Like you gotta want that change. If you don't want that change, like you say, you're gonna make your stay here harder than what it is. So, I mean, I'd have been. Me and him both, we've been knowing each other for years, and we at the point where we done made so much progress in our lives, like in the process of completing programs and all that stuff. So I'd have been almost 3 years charge free, and this alone I'd have been locked up 11 years. So this alone I'd been charge free out my whole bed. So that you just gotta, it comes within yourself. You gotta want that change.
Change. How an offender views change can weigh heavily on his decisions. Whether it's fear of change, a lack of desire to experience change, or the unwillingness to complete the tasks required to bring about change. There are several offenders at Red Onion who elect not to participate in the step-down program.
We have some who are happy in SAG because they feel protective. They have their single cell, They don't have to be around anyone. And right there, they can say that they're 3 hots in a cot. The meals come to them. They have rec and showers, and they don't have to interact with any other inmates.
People bring them their food, tell them when to get up. It's more structured. And unfortunately, a lot of offenders deal with structure more than they do responsibilities.
We just ask them to give it a chance. And if they keep refusing, we keep offering the chance. You know, we keep telling them there's more out there than just segregation. Take a few programs, give it a try, get out of segregation. There's better than this for you.
When the offenders themselves start to understand that the programming is actually a rehearsal of skills and actually is for their betterment, then we see that they hook into more programming. And they're like, wow, I'm surprised I didn't want to come out, or, oh, I've done so well in this group, can I take that group? So oftentimes it's just introducing them to the new milieu. And then that creates a behavioral momentum, we call it.
You know, one example of how much we care about reentry and getting people successfully out of level S is we have implemented a reentry program at the level S in both phases. So for example, if someone is in an IM level S, there is a reentry program that they go to before they go out. And our real goal with that is we do not want someone going from an environment where they're locked up much of the day to the community. We want them to, if there's a risk to be taken with people's behavior, we want to take that in corrections. And so we want to let those folks out of restraints, walking independently, freedom within the pod before they go out to the community.
How did you end up at Red Onion?
End up at Red Onion by assaulting an officer at Greensville.
Ramiko Williams was serving 8.5 years on drug charges. Acquiring an additional assault charge while incarcerated earned him more time and a transfer to Red Onion.
I had came to a point where I feared going home. My first release date was 2014. My brother went to the feds for selling firearms. I was the first one to give him a firearm. I have 3 kids who don't know me. I got very depressed in my negative thoughts. And I began to get institutionalized where I felt as though I would be better off staying in prison than going home.
On this date, Williams is in the intensive management reentry pod after working his way down from administrative segregation in C building. He's scheduled to be released in 10 months.
I have a job over here, come out here. There's more programs over here as well. I can go to the shower and to rec without restraints and shackles over here. In the Think for Change program, they have a section called Attitudes, Beliefs, and Principles. And it got me to realize that if you have certain attitudes and beliefs and principles that you have had for a long time over the years that may not be right, it'd be hard making a transition, but all of your belief principles may not be correct. So it made me examine myself, as Socrates say, the unexamined life is not worth living. And I've written 4 books since I've been incarcerated, so I'm working on getting those edited and published. I want to do gang intervention because I really care about the youth, and I want to try to balance a lot of wrong that I've done. I've done a lot of wrong in my life. I want to try to give back.
We have to keep on trying to be better because as we become better, we are creating second chances for human beings, the offenders, and as we become better, we are creating good beginnings and new beginnings for the children of those offenders who find themselves in that quagmire of crime and punishment. We all know that those kids are the ones that are at risk, and we have an opportunity to break that cycle.
The climate of the prison is one of helping people change and creating internal motivation for people to behave rather than just external we versus them. That, you know, we have the same goal as the offenders. You know, we all want them, and they should want themselves to do better. So that's the goal. So I think it's a much better environment for staff.
Red Onion has changed a lot in 10 years, not only staff, but with inmates in general.
Sergeant Jordan Fleming is one of many employees at Red Onion who've watched the transformation unfold for both offenders and staff.
You get to know the offender better than what you knew before and what you thought about them before. You interact with them a lot more than you usually do. When I first started, a lot of these guys who I thought once would never be treatable, who caused all kinds of stuff, bad behavior, assault staff, inmates. I've seen them go through the programs. I've seen them enter out and then go to the other side of the yard and remain charge-free, you know.
there is a big breakthrough moment when they realize they have the power to change their life. They realize that, you know, we're not in control of their life. Their probation officer, their judge or lawyer is not in control of their life, but they realize their actions and their behaviors control their life.
There's a couple that we just recently graduated for T4C that's over in population right now that we never thought would make it anywhere near that far.
In the last 5 years, the changes that we've made, yeah, I think it's helped out the people here as far as from us going from almost a total segregation, and you're having so much stress on people and so many things to do versus more of a population setting now. And it's just great that we got these guys out of seg in order to make it easier on staff.
They're here, they're getting them the opportunity to think about why they got here, what they need to do to get away from here, and what they need to do to make a change in their life if they won't plan on returning to society.
We've got a good program now, step-down program. I've seen a lot of offenders that I never thought would get out of seg. It's now walking over in level 5 and are being productive.
It's very encouraging to go to Red Onion and see staff in uniform delivering programs to the offenders at the institution. It was very encouraging as well to hear the offenders say to myself and to elected officials who toured the facility with me that for the first time they can see light at the end of the tunnel. They believe that there's a way out, and they're willing to take a look at themselves, to change behaviors, to be able to step down from that facility to a lower level institutions.
By operating the step-down program and taking a calculated risk on the inside, Virginia has made a real difference in the lives of both offenders and staff in the state's highest security prisons. While volatile offenders can still be assigned to segregation, there is now a clear pathway out of restrictive housing if they choose to take it. Even when an offender has a life sentence, he can make a positive contribution to his environment, impacting those around him who will one day be back in the community. The Virginia Department of Corrections is in the business of helping people make better choices, creating lasting public safety.